I often think about people we've lost, warriors of our sort of movement, of our industry, of our medium. And I think what they would be doing today in this crazy time we're living in, when we see Democrats marching around supporting murdering young CEOs, open borders, Democrats fleeing Texas, Democrats supporting Hamas, a terrorist organization. I think about folks like Rush Limbaugh and what Rush would be saying today. I think about people like Andrew Breitbart, what Andrew would be doing with all of this material today. And the timing of our guest here is perfect because Alex Marlow, who's the editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, two-time New York Times bestselling author, he was the first employee hired by Andrew Breitbart at the impressionable young age of 21 years old. Alex has gone on to be featured on the covers of Time Magazine, Newsweek, described in Forbes 30 Under 30 as maybe the most significant media figure in America. And he's got a brand new book out that I cannot wait to crack open. I'm not going to crack it. I'm going to crack it open. This is amazing, Breaking the Law, Exposing the Weaponization of America's Legal System Against Donald Trump, available where books are sold. Alex Marlow, how great it is to welcome you back to the Mike Gallagher Show. How are you?
Mike, it's really great to be with you. You're such a terrific audience. You've earned your reputation, and this is one of the shows I want to do the most during this tour.
That means a lot to me. Thank you. And coming from you, that's high praise because you know how much I admire you. And let me just start before we talk about the book and where we are right now in August of 2025. What would Andrew be thinking about what's happening now? Because the stuff he was tackling back in the day before his untimely death, the issues that he covered and the way he did it, the panache, the style, the intensity, you know what I mean? What would he be doing with this material that the Democrats are handing us on a daily basis today?
I think he'd be having a blast, and I've thought about this exact question quite a bit during this week because a few things in the news cycle, one connects directly to the book, but everything else is sort of unrelated. I think about the Sydney Sweeney saga, that Andrew was super fun. He had two modes: righteous indignation, which a lot of people know him for that, but also jocularity. He was really a fun guy. And the left just said, we're going to give you the beautiful buxom blondes with blue eyes and great genes, and you can just have them. And we're just going to keep, Lizzo and all that stuff. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to call the hot blondes who are having fun, who seem to like this country, we're going to call them Nazis, just making them de facto conservatives. Andrew would have been in hog heaven during this stuff. Like, he dreamt of this. He was critical of the conservative movement for being too prudish and too and scolds. Andrew was a family man. He was loyal to his wife. He had 4 kids, but he thought we were too prudish on the level, and I think he would love that. What I'm witnessing in Texas, I saw an interview with a guy. His name's not coming to mind, but he's a Texas congressman on the BBC, and they were asking him, "Don't you think it's unfair that you guys are going to redistrict, gerrymander, whatever it is?" And he said, "I don't care. I literally don't care. I was elected by constituency to win, and that's what we're doing. We won, so we get to do this." And that's the type of stuff Andrew would have loved. Andrew would have loved that stuff because we're telling the truth. We're speaking plainly. We're fighting for our people, and we're fighting against the forces that are trying to take down this country. And so I think he would really be delighting about the arc of the movement right now.
My Andrew Breitbart story is that, I can't for the life of me remember any of the details of this movie, but I was invited to be like an extra in a movie. And what they were doing was they were having some, so-called celebrity hosts and influencers, or whatever you want to call us, whatever it is that we all do, in one of the, and it was like in colonial America, and I had to wear like a white wig, and you may remember this because you were with Andrew, I think, at the time, but I had to wear like a white wig, and I was in the woods somewhere. I don't even remember what the heck the movie was. It was so long ago, but Andrew was the extra the week before me. So as they were doing this movie, and it was an actual bona fide movie, but I don't remember what the heck it was. I have completely blanked out, but all I remember is that Andrew was in the white wig too, the white powdered wig and the colonial getup in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the woods somewhere, and the crew couldn't stop talking about how fun he was and how delightful he was to be around. And, people that just get Breitbart, they don't know. I mean, we don't always know the personality of the people behind these big media sort of empires like you have. And they just loved him. They adored him. So that's my sort of connection. And doggone it, I can't remember what the movie was. I can't remember where it was. Do you have any memory of that?
Yeah, it's ringing a bell. This was, I think it was a David Zucker thing that he did where he was parroting. It was a colonial type deal. Yeah, this American Carol, was that it? Is that the one?
Something.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it was something like, and it went to like North Carolina. I can't remember. I went to the Carolina. We were in the woods. I remember it was hot as hell, and we were wearing these big wool costumes. But it was a movie. It was a bona fide movie, and they were picking little. Yeah, I got to figure this out. I'm going to go back and kind of figure out what in the world I got to do here to get more memory of this. But you're right. I think Andrew would be having an absolute blast. He'd have the time of his life. I mean, look, these Democrats, they're doubling down. They're claiming Beto O'Rourke said that fleeing the state of Texas and hiding out in one of Big J.B. Pritzker's hotel rooms is the highest form of public service. In
the heavily gerrymandered, obnoxiously gerrymandered Illinois, right?
Illinois, yeah. And then meanwhile, you got the governor of Massachusetts, where there isn't a single Republican represented, saying, "Oh, you're going to do it now, Republicans. We're going to gerrymander some more in Massachusetts." What more can you do to Republicans in Massachusetts, Alex?
I don't know, but something that is really, I think, apropos here and germane to the topic of my book is that what Andrew identified during his time was that the left was controlling the country in a lot of ways through our cultural institutions, namely Hollywood, academia, and the establishment media. Now, we've completely destroyed the credibility of the establishment media. I actually opened Breaking the Law pointing this out by noting that Jeff Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, one of the storied papers in the country, says that journalism is the least trusted profession and the industry is basically dead as we knew it. Hollywood is basically just content for you and me now. No one's going to movies. Fewer of them are woke now because the woke moment seems to be dying off, at least to some degree. And they're just creating content that we can play on talk radio and make fun of them. So we've neutralized those. Academia is a problem, but fewer people, I think, are going to college and fewer people are needing to go to college. So I don't think we've won that battle, but I think we've made some strides. But the problem is that the left opened up a couple of major new fronts. One is in the corporate boardrooms. They hijacked a lot of corporate boardrooms and made our corporations left at a moment where America got very highly corporatized, where we started to find ourselves showing allegiance to all these products like Apple and Facebook. It was a very bizarre thing. I always thought we were sort of anti-corporatist to some extent in the country. And then we just had this big corporate moment. Right at the moment, the left was co-opting them, the NFL. Like a lot of people really loyal to the NFL corporation. Just at the exact moment, they were very woke. It's winding down, thankfully, but the left made a lot of progress in that regard. The other new front they opened up is lawfare. They took over much of the legal establishment and made it essentially a part of their political apparatus. They've been working on this. It's been a years-long project, a decades-long project, and that really is the biggest threat to MAGA right now.
Well, and the book details the way they went after Trump. I have a theory that I want to bounce off of you. Please. Because this weaponization of the courts and the judicial system, this lawfare, I think would have continued unabated until they did it to Trump. That was the game changer, because they've done it to ordinary people for a long time. I've visited this week with one of our advertising partners, and of course very famous My Pillow guy Mike Lindell. When Trump announced the executive order against debanking, for a bank to be able to say to a customer, "Hey, I don't like your politics. I don't like the fact that you're questioning the outcome of an election. So you know what? You can't bank here anymore." Well, wait a minute, Mr. Banker. I banked with you for 25 years. Yeah, but you're not going to do business with us anymore. We're giving you back your money. Get out. And that's what they did to Mike Lindell. That is literally what, and not just to Mike personally, Alex, but they did it to the My Pillow company. They did it to all the corporate accounts. They even did it to Mike's charitable entity, which reaches out to fellow addicts and recovering addicts. They canceled his philanthropic bank account. And so Trump this week said no more to this. So back to the weaponization of the actual courts. When they did this to Trump, I remember standing in Atlanta, Georgia, when he was indicted there by one of those lunatic leftist prosecutors, and he had to go to Atlanta and suffer the indignity of being processed and being booked as a common criminal. I watched his motorcade drive by, and I thought, there's going to be a change. There's going to be hell to pay. This is the game changer that America needed. Do you agree with me that the lawfare took a turn on its head when they made the ridiculous decision to try to use it against President Trump?
Yeah, I think that the Mar-a-Lago raid really guaranteed the election for him. I thought that, but the lawfare really intensified from there, and it got very scary from that point. But I want to go back to something you said earlier with the debanking. I actually connect that to lawfare in the book. You'll be very heartened, and you'll get the satisfaction pretty early on, Mike, when you read it. But I think I'm totally on the same page as you. That I think that this project, this lawfare project, a lot of it was accelerated. I go through the whole history, starting with Franklin Roosevelt. I do it briefly just as a primer for people, but how lawfare evolved over the last century on the American left. But I think it really accelerated with Barack Obama and Eric Holder using tactics designed for the war on terror to try to target conservatives, take away their nonprofit status, get them debanked, make it so that they're getting slowly eliminated from polite American society. And it continues to this day. Melania Trump's reported this year that she and Barron Trump were debanked by a bank because they're Trumps. So this is still going on, and it absolutely is a connection to the lawfare superstructure that was weaponized against Trump.
Have you ever had that happen to you personally? Because, Alex, I was thinking about when I was interviewing Mike Lindell yesterday, I thought, if I was told by my banker that you can't do business here anymore because you're a conservative talk show host, my head would explode. I don't know what a helpless feeling that must be. That has to be, and I'm sorry people can get mad at me for this analogy, but that has to be exactly like it feels like when blacks were told you're not going to get served at the lunch counter because of the color of your skin. You're being discriminated against because of who you are or what you believe. Alex, that has to be one of the most helpless feelings in the world. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Not exactly. I've had similar things, but I've tried to live a simple life and be careful about this because I was really at the tip of the spear for the modern conservative movement. People will recall Breitbart's history. We were the first major media outlet to take Trump seriously, to understand the good stuff that he had to offer.
Yep.
And we were always causing controversy. So I've always been prepared for this. So when I go, and I just had to open up a new bank account this year for actually when I joined up with Salem to do my podcast, the Alex Marlow Show. And, I call around first, and you're putting feelers out. Like, are you comfortable doing this? Like, are you comfortable helping this business that's going to fight against the left? Are you helpful? Are you going to be helpful? And a lot of Americans are, but a lot aren't. And you don't always get the right answer the first time. Even simple things like when I record the audiobook for the book, we ended up going with the third studio we called because the first two, it was not a match. As you can imagine, Mike, that's going to happen quite a bit when you're doing some sort of a performance. And this is it's not right, because if I shouldn't have to, if it was a skin tone issue, it's like, I happen to be a black guy, so is it cool if I come and use your studio? The answer should always be yes. So why is it acceptable that if you're doing conservative book, even though it's thoroughly researched, Simon & Schuster is a publisher as mainstream as it gets, it's still not everyone's okay with that. That's really, really, really bad in this society. It shows the intolerance of the left. Another point Andrew would always make, that they're the intolerant ones. We're much more tolerant than they are.
Visiting with Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart News. And you mentioned the podcast, and look, I get to go under the hood here at All Things Salem, and the Alex Marlow Show is a bona fide hit. It's a podcast that's a joint production of the Salem Podcast Network and the Breitbart News Network, and it's a must. I engage with it every single chance I get. It's terrific, and truly, Alex, I consider you one of the most important voices for common sense and freedom and clarity in America. And I'm thrilled about the book, Breaking the Law, Exposing the Weaponization of America's Legal System Against Donald Trump. I have to ask you, do you think
Sure.
the dam is the dam breaking? Is the substantive change that we've been praying for many years occurring under this leadership? Because it seems to me that in the first 6 or 7 months of this Trump presidency, we have seen such such epic change and such enormous force of positivity. It kind of takes my breath away. I've been at this a long time,
Yeah.
many decades. I've sat behind a microphone. There's nothing like this. Are you as confident and are you as optimistic as I am?
I'll give you a two-part answer. The initial answer I have is a hearty absolutely, that we've been praying for this. We've been working for this. People like me, I've been in the trenches for almost 2 decades on this, you for much longer. We've never seen this level of victories getting racked up in a row. We've never seen a fun and fearless conservative base like we have right now. That is a deep positive. But part of the reason why I did the book is I wanted to do a warning for people. First of all, it's a primer on all of those cases against Trump. There were 6 of them. They were almost impossible to keep straight, even for a incredibly smart person who reads the news all day. And not only did Donald Trump have to keep them straight, he had to win them. He either had to win these cases, all of which were illegitimate, you'll find out, all of which were coordinated by the Biden White House, which should be illegal and should be investigated. But in order to survive that, and then campaign from the courthouse when you were getting politically persecuted and win the election is such a stunning feat. We have not had a chance to really take in how remarkable that was. But the fact that that was possible, that the standard bearer of an American political party, a former president and a future president, would be targeted by our own government in order to try to prevent him to becoming president, and no one's seems to be investigating it, no heads have rolled, that is a warning to everyone in this space that we cannot wait a minute. We cannot rest a day. There's no off seasons anymore. There's no peacetime anymore. The left is at war with us, and it is a civil war, as Dennis Prager likes to say, thank God, for the most part, occasionally violent, but mostly peaceful. But we need to be on that wartime footing, because one of the solutions I recommend, we have to win every single election. We can't lose one. All those judge races that you're maybe a little too lazy to start understanding. We need to get in the weeds on everything. We need to be fired up. We need to be recruiting people. Everyone who maybe is more of a passive voter, maybe their pet issue has not been addressed yet, and all the great things that Trump's accomplished so far. You need to stick with us, and you need to stay in the game, because the left is trying to destroy this country, and they're using whatever means necessary to do that.
Well, this redistricting issue this week has been so enormous because if you look at the possibility of the Supreme Court ruling favorably on the unfair redistricting, if you look at these handful of states that are committed to redistricting, and you look at Trump's announcement yesterday that he's ordering a fair census, not a census that includes millions of illegals, but an accurate, honest assessment of our population. Alex, the Democrats could lose between 20 and 40 seats in the House of Representatives. If they lose 40 seats in the House of Representatives, they'll never be in the seat of power again.
This is such a big deal because we cut the census based off of residence. Now, you don't necessarily get to vote, particularly in federal elections. And I know this out in California, that California, when you walk around and you talk to people, it doesn't feel quite as left as we vote. It was shocking to me when you get some of the election results we've had, considering how when you talk to people, there's a lot of normal people. It's the state with the most Republicans in the country. And so you start thinking, well, then why is everything so off? One of the many reasons is that we have too many Democrat seats because of the census, which counts illegal alien residents, which it shouldn't. And that is, of course, lawless. And the Democrats have no regard for law and order, a concept I unpack in great detail. They hate law and order. They resent it. They think it's an impediment for them getting their way. And we, on the right, we need to be stewards of the Constitution. We need to be stewards of law and order. And what Trump is doing is actually trying to restore that. So this is to be deeply celebrated and to be cheered on. And when the left comes after him for it, we got to stand with him.
Look, this is a book that everybody needs to get their hands on. Breaking the Law, Exposing the Weaponization of America's Legal System Against Donald Trump, wherever books are sold by the great Alex Marlow. And I mean that, Alex. I have such admiration for you and the work you've done over the years. So honored that you're doing the podcast with us here at Salem. And I know the book is going to be a huge success. Thank you for taking time out of the red eyes and the planes, trains, and automobiles to visit with us for a few minutes on the Mike Gallagher Show. I know our audience appreciates you, and I do too.
Mike, you're such a pro, and I admire you a lot, and your longevity is so commendable, and you're such a gracious colleague. Let me know if I can return the favor at any point on the Marlow Show.
You got it. Keep fighting the good fight. Alex Marlow here on the Mike Gallagher Show.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.